Okay. Can everybody? Here we go. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here on this committee day, bright and early. So we'll start off our meeting as we normally do with a word of prayer and from my friend Danny Mathis.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for everyone here today. Watch over their families, be with them. Help us in these last waning days of this session. Make good decisions, do the right thing for the people of the state of Georgia. For it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. I want to, on a little personal note, I want to tell you the Lord blessed us a little bit this morning with the weather. I was very worried about the low temperatures and frost this morning, but word from my son at the farm that no frost and stayed above freezing. So peach crop and strawberries look really good right now. So I know a lot of farmers were worried across our state about some low temperatures this morning, and I hope everybody fared as well as my farm seems to have. So as soon as we get out of this meeting, I'm headed there to check on things. But I do appreciate everybody being here. In your packet is some information about Georgia Department of Agriculture celebrates Georgia Ag Week. And so I hope you'll take this two-page information and maybe put it on your Facebooks or websites and sort of get the word out around our state about the things going on. Our Commissioner Tyler Harper's plan for Ag Week. And has a lot going on, and I hope you participate and get that word around in your districts and across our state about Georgia's number one industry, agriculture, and its importance and the role it plays in our state's economy very much. We got some other people. I got one person I want to recognize out in the audience, Gary Richardson, newly elected, will be sworn in tomorrow. From district, I don't know, but glad to have you, and I look forward to your participation the next week or so. So thank you. First off this morning, I want to change the order just a little bit if we can. My office mate has got a little bill in your packet, House Resolution 1498. You want to come up, Chairman Rhodes, to the table, Mike. Glad to have you in the Ag Committee this morning.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I tell you that cold weather might have. Do you think it slowed down the deer grazing in my peach orchard this morning?
Well, my reports from home, which are my game cams, and my deer and turkeys are looking good this morning. So we're fired up about opening. We have youth weekends this weekend, so my son and I are planning on chasing one.
I got a feeling I got a good crop of peaches and a good crop of deer down there. We'll have to see who's going to win out. But I appreciate all your efforts to keep our deer population in check.
We're working on some things, and as you're well aware, and hopefully there'll be some good news coming out.
Well, thank you for your work there. We're working off LC 442827. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. The microphone's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is I know some of you, we had worked on a little water bill earlier in the session, and we think it's better to maybe kind of slow down and take a look at things. And what all this bill does is this is a study committee on private water companies. I am a true believer in the free market, but water is a necessity. So we just want to make sure that a lot of our citizens in these areas are getting charged fair rates and fees for hookups and taps. And that's all this does, Mr. Chairman. I'll be glad to answer any questions. And also, by doing this, I've had a lot of conversations with the PSC, with the chairman of the PSC, and this, I think, will give the Public Service Commission a little bit more time to slow down and look at things and try to figure out if something were to happen on private water companies.
Okay, we do have some questions, but you do have a private water system over in your district is what really precipitated that. Is that right?
Yes, sir. And in a lot of these areas, we have to have private water systems, especially in rural Georgia. They're very important. My county structure, you know, we've got this little pond called Lake Oconee that kind of came up in the late 70s and 80s, and the cities all have water companies, but now the major population in my area in Greene and Putnam County is around Lake Oconee, which is unincorporated. So basically we have a monopoly there, and in hence comes this study committee.
Well, my thoughts go out to you. I was actually a private water system operator for about 10 years in my little community. We didn't have county water, and we had a little system running our farm and some houses, and so we expanded the system, and it was terrible. Y'all, anybody that's got to run a private water system, my hat's off to them, because it's a difficult job and expensive too. So thanks for wanting to study it. Son, we got a couple of questions.
Sure.
Chairman Camp. Oh, hold on. You're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Rhodes, for bringing this measure. I'm not sure how many other individuals had the opportunity to be on the Energy Committee. I know Chairman Dickey was when this measure was brought in the form of a bill, and I appreciate this. I was looking here. It says the committee shall stand abolished on December 1st, 2024. So I'm taking it you're going to put this committee. This committee will be put together. This study committee. And all the findings will happen this summer and fall.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
All right. My parents also are a member of a private water system, which I think I said in that meeting as well. They're down in the Savannah area, and I know it is very important because where their home was built, there was no water. So for that neighborhood to exist, a private company came in, which I fully appreciate. I'm just trying to figure out here. Is there any particular, I mean, this is just a pull-on study committee, just to find out exactly what should happen, correct?
Yes, ma'am. We will get all the details, and I will present all the details at a later date, but we just wanted to set the structure to get something going.
All
and
right.
the agenda will be made at a later date.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Lady Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick follow-up. I know there had been a bill, I believe, that moved it to the Public Service Commission, or is this part of that, or was there a different bill?
That bill did put private water companies under the purview of the Public Service Commission.
Okay, is it active, or has it gone somewhere, or is it floating out there?
It's sitting.
Okay, I know how that works. My follow-up to that would be, I too have been on a private water system, and I know they can be difficult to deal with. So at this point in time, this is just to study it, and then we can bring that information to help move the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. That is my hopes.
Okay, and what is the power, I guess it would be our Public Service Commission, what is their take on it? They want more information?
Yes, ma'am, and they're going to need some time and some budget help and some other things of that nature.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, my understanding is Public Service Commission does not regulate private water systems. Chairman Rhodes, my understanding is Public Service Commission at present time does not regulate private water systems. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. At this time, they do not regulate any water systems.
Correct.
And this would only deal with private water systems, not city and municipal systems. This is just private water systems.
Yeah. Chairman Jaspers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Rhodes, for, since you brought this up, you're now like number 4 on my email list of people in my area. Believe it or not, we have 2 great big water systems up in the mountains, provide excellent service, but their rates are creeping up pretty rapidly. And so this may help address that, looking into it, see if it's fair, because that's what the Public Service Commission do. It wouldn't be anything about quality or water quality, because that's already covered by someone else.
That's correct. That's already. This is about fair and reasonable rate of return for those companies.
Well, thank
making
you.
sure they're charging the consumers a fair rate on their water and their fees.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Representative Donahue.
Thank you, Chairman. What's the definition of fair? I like fair, but I guess I would like to kind of know what rates are normal and what would be fair.
Well, that's where the Public Service Commission comes in, because, like I said, I'm a huge free market guy. You and I don't have to go buy this coat. We don't have to go buy our shoes, but we have to have water.
That's right.
So what is a fair and reasonable rate of return to that company for a necessity of life? And
The
that's what
study committee would decide that by using an analysis. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't think study committee's gonna decide anything. They're gonna
Yeah.
make recommendations
We're gonna
and
hopefully have
study
some findings.
and study the issues.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Chairman Gunner.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
More than once, I had litigants in front of me over water systems for subdivisions. Is this going to be looking at that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. And do you have any idea how many of, not just those kind, but all of the private water systems that you're going to be looking at? You know how many are out there?
Out there right now in Georgia, we've got between 34 and 38 owners, which includes about 567 systems. Now, like what you're talking about is this subdivision may be one system, this subdivision another system, so they own multiple systems. But there are about 34 to 38 owners from what I can find. Yes, sir.
Okay. Got one other question. Mathis, Representative Mathis.
Chairman Rhodes, say like you had a fire and you in one of these subdivisions and they have to tap into this thing. Who's responsible for paying for that water? Do they recoup that through premiums, or how would that happen if you had something of that?
That's a good
Issue.
question. As far as who pays for the water that comes out of the fire hydrant,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to find that out. But they do have fire hydrants on the private systems. But as far as who would pay for that, I don't know.
Yeah, I would just be curious in the study committee to address that, to make sure that, public safety is taken care of over who's compensated for it. I mean, and who would pay for it. I mean, could they bill a county fire department for it?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Chairman Leverett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to that question, I would assume the homeowners association or all users of the system would pay for that kind of use, because it having that obviously available for fire service benefits everybody in the system. But I think that highlights the need for the study committee. I noticed there was some discussion about the PSC, and you've got the chairperson of the PSC named as a member in the bill, so I think that's very useful. So I think this is a topic that is very deserved of study, and I appreciate you bringing the bill. And Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to make a motion at the appropriate time.
Are there any other questions from Chairman Rhodes about this bill? I got a motion. I got a second. Any other questions or discussion on this bill? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman
Thank
and
you.
members. Y'all have a good
I
day.
think you've got, this committee is giving you quite a challenge on this study committee here. It's raised some questions. Okay. Yeah, we look forward to a report. Okay, next on our agenda, Senator Hofstadter, Senate Bill 457. Please come to the table, and thank you for being here. Appreciate all your work over in the Senate.
Yeah, we've gotten about, I think as of yesterday, about 21 House bills out. Now, 2 of them Shaw wouldn't claim credit for. He said they didn't go through his committee.
Well, thank
got
you. A lot
to
of my committee is keep looking at that yellow sheet up there, and no House bills on it. I hope that's gonna change a little bit
I do
coming
too.
soon.
And on the crops, Russ Goodman's 4,000 blueberry bushes are good. My 30 up in Rome, I'm not sure about. We may have a problem with those, but I've had problems the last couple of years with that. Representative Rhodes says, if I can go ahead of you, it won't take 30 seconds. I said, sure. But anyway, finance it until 2:30 today, but hopefully we won't take that long. So this bill is to reinstate the Consumer Utility Council. We had one here from the 1970s through 2008. And then with the recession, they were scraping up pennies everywhere. And this was eliminated, never reinstated. 46 states currently have one. Every state around touching Georgia has one. I think South Dakota, Louisiana, Mississippi, the only 3 states that don't have one. So the importance of this, and we've got some good consumer advocates that study these things with the Public Service Commission, but what this is that this gives this person legal standing to represent the consumers in matters not just on state regulatory issues, but federal regulatory issues. By consumer, in the definition, that also includes small businesses. So we've got some complex issues out there. We've got data centers. We've got a lot of stuff going on, and we want to make sure that the consumers have an advocate for them as well. This person would be appointed by the governor, and appointed or removed by the governor. And with that, I'll listen for any questions, I guess, this time.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Bill seems to hire attorneys. We got actually 3 excellent attorneys on this committee. They're very knowledgeable in the legal profession. I'm not.
Well, they might want the appointment. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not qualified.
But we've got Representative Lim and Judge Gunner and Representative sitting right in front of me, Leverett, Chairman Leverett. So I look to them for a lot of legal guidance on this committee, and this looks like it's creating some more legal. I spend a lot of my time up here trying to minimize lawsuits, and I've got some questions on this one. So let's see, Representative Chairman Jaspers.
Thank you, Chairman Huff-Settler. I said a couple questions. Back when it was in action, I remember reading about it occasionally in the paper. Can you show what did it specifically accomplish being there?
Well, they handled about, I think the last year they were around about 25,000 different consumer issues that would be called into their office, dealing with, connections, small matters, but also looked at, large matters on are the consumers getting what they should on the rate. So they handled a variety of issues. And I wasn't in the legislature until 2013, so I wasn't around at that time.
Yeah, so they're just saying they're more or less an advocate for consumers and all across state government. Is that an accurate statement?
Correct. And anything dealing with utilities.
The utilities. Okay. Do you have a cost, Mr. Chairman, if I continue on what this might cost?
Well, the office back when it was abolished was $400,000.
Okay.
With inflation, it would be more. However, I think that even though this would be an independent person with legal standing, they would be over there housed at the PSA, and I think there's some staff that they could also work with over there. So definitely under $1 million. But I think when we're building $35 billion plants and stuff, that it would be nice to have somebody that would also be looking out with legal standing for the consumer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Hofstadter, have we got money in the budget for this?
We don't, and this, like any other thing, is subject to appropriations. I didn't push appropriations yet until I saw how far this would be, and so it could be a year delay in getting it started if the money's not there. But it's obviously by our state constitution subject to appropriations. Just passing the bill doesn't mean it immediately happens, as we all know.
Okay. Representative Lim.
Chairman Hofstadter, thank you so much for bringing this bill. I think it's very much needed. We just did an energy assistance event in my district last night, and we had a lot of questions that, on some eyes, were very basic, but something like this would very helpful. Sometimes this can be very challenging for regular consumers to deal with. I will put on my attorney hat for a second, and just clarify that in line 60, that any of suits or proceedings, this is all in a representative capacity, meaning they will not be representing any individual consumer. I think that's pretty clear, but I just wanted to clarify that. And my second question is, I think this is very much needed. How do you see this as distinct from, say, the Consumer Protection Division or the Regulated Industries section of the Attorney General's office?
Well, this would be an independent person, like the other states around us have seen the need to have, that would be only on utilities, but would be representing the consumers. And again, there's federal matters as well that they can help protect the consumers on and stand up for them.
Thank you.
Chairman Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Huffsettler, for bringing this bill. I had a logistics question. I was looking historically, and it appears that back before it was defunded, it was the Governor's Office of Consumer Protection who had this advocate, this Consumer Utility Council that existed. And since that point, I guess that's kind of been shifted over to the Attorney General's office to some degree, because they have the Georgia Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division. And I noticed in your bill, it talks about them being appointed by the governor and so forth. Would that potentially be in conflict with the fact the Attorney General's office has their Consumer Protection Division? Or how would this work since they're already doing that job to a small degree?
Well, I haven't seen a lot of input on the utilities themselves because they represent consumers in a variety of issues. And this is, as I said, similar to 46 states where you've got somebody specifically just for utilities that does that. So I think that's the difference.
Well, if I could follow up, sir.
Absolutely.
I guess my question being, would it be a duplication of work? Have you discussed with the AG, if this were to come to fruition, how that would work? Would their office and the Attorney General's office go away at that point? Because they do utilities as well. I don't know how much advocacy they do, but that is something listed on their website. So I was just curious.
Well, I certainly that office wouldn't go away because I think utilities are a tiny fraction, if at all, of what they work on for consumers. So this is, again, not broadly consumers, but specifically with utilities. And as I said, a lot of stuff I do when I did surprise billing and things like that, I look at other states, what Texas was doing, what New York was doing. My ideas aren't always so great. I find things that work in other states, and these seem to work in other states. And I thought we should reinstitute what we had before the budget crisis came about.
Well, I certainly agree. We do need more advocacy, so thank you.
Yes, I'm very proud of the low rates Georgia has for our electric utilities. Very proud of our co-ops and others that provide good electricity at great low rates here in Georgia. Chairman Leverett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Chairman
Good morning.
Huffsettler. Good to see you again. I appreciate you bringing this bill. I just want to make sure I understand the structure. So you're, as crafted by the bill here, that the office would be assigned to the commission, but could act independent of it, I would assume, because
Right.
the director would be appointed by the governor.
And I think that's the difference that makes it like the other states, is that they're an independent advocate that has legal standing on behalf of consumers.
And then the director is an attorney, and the idea is he or she would be able to intervene in existing PSC proceedings or initiate them, his or herself, and then they can participate in discovery in those proceedings. And then, again, with the idea, as Representative Lim said, of representing consumers broadly in
Right,
their interests.
and you know, you're talking PSC, but this is all utilities that they could be involved in.
Okay.
We've talked about water and some other stuff here. So.
Yes, sir. And they can even intervene in federal or participate in federal administrative agencies if it's on behalf of Georgia consumers too.
Correct.
As I understand. And they would be able to, subject to appropriation, as you say, employ assistants and experts, because I guess usually when you're in administrative proceedings, you need the people with expertise and expert knowledge, so they would be able to retain those people to help them in prosecuting those matters on behalf of consumers.
Yeah,
Is that-
correct. And I think there are people that have a lot of this knowledge and data right now that they could draw on, existing people
Okay.
in place that seem to be doing a pretty good job.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Lewis, you good? Okay. I don't see any other questions from the committee. Thank you, Senator. We got a couple of people in the audience that I'd like to hear from. We got Tom Brand from Public Service Commission. Love for you to come and sort of give us your take. I'd love to know how y'all foresee this thing would interact with the commission. I'm a little bit unsure how that would work. So got the podium mic. Thank you.
The commission, of course, will do whatever the legislature asks it to do. That said, the commission doesn't think having a consumer utility council is necessary. First, unlike most of the states, in Georgia, the commissioners are directly elected by the people. Unlike appointed commissioners, there is no intermediary between them and their constituents. If ratepayers are unhappy, commissioners know it. They'll find out at the ballot box if they don't find out from the call to their office. So they take their responsibility of setting just and reasonable rates very seriously. Second, the commission already has an independent staff team that participates as a party in all major cases. That staff is charged with representing the public interest. In fact, when the commission has something like a Georgia Power rate case, it has two different staff teams. One is called the Public Interest Advocacy Staff, and then there's a separate staff team called the Commissioner Advisory Staff. They have different team leaders, they have different team members, they have different attorneys, and they have different mandates. The Public Interest Advocacy Staff is charged with performing an independent evaluation of the company's case from the standpoint of promoting the public interest and just and reasonable rates, and then advocating for that position to the extent that it believes a position of the company or any other party is not in the public interest or that the proposed rates are not just and reasonable. It opposes those positions and offers alternative positions. The Public Interest Advocacy Staff can negotiate potential settlements with other parties when it believes it would be in the public interest to do so. The Public Interest Advocacy is a party to the case. The Public Interest Advocacy issues its own discovery. It has full discovery rights under the Civil Practice Act. For example, in the amended Integrated Resource Plan for Georgia Power that's currently before the commission, staff has issued approximately 1,000 interrogatories when you include subparts. Staff uses its own expert witnesses. In this amended IRP, staff put on 12 expert witnesses. It cross-examines the company's witnesses, it briefs the issues, and it makes independent recommendations. The Commissioner Advisory Staff, on the other hand, is the staff that doesn't participate in the party as a case and advises commissioners on technical and legal issues, almost like the clerk of a court or something like that. Third, the commission has a very robust and liberal intervention policy. In the amended IRP that I just mentioned, there are 18 interveners. Those 18 interveners put on 17 different expert witnesses. So when you add that, to what the Public Interest Advocacy Staff, the 12 they put on, so the commission had 29 expert witnesses who were all pointing out various things that they disagreed with on the company's case. So the commission is getting a huge amount of information. Those 17 interveners include Georgia Watch, which states that it's the state's leading consumer advocate. It includes a coalition of city governments that state that they represent 1.6 million Georgia residents. It includes various industrial groups, various solar advocates, various environmental advocates. So the commission is getting a huge range of information. On top of that, the commission also has a very liberal public witness policy. On every day of the hearings, public witnesses can come in at the start of the hearing and make statements to the commission. The commission has 2 committee meetings a month. A case typically is a 6-month process. So that's 12 committee meetings where public witnesses can come in and give their input. The commission also takes comments via the internet. So you already have commissioners who are elected by the people. You already have a staff team that's independent, and their entire job is to put on an independent evaluation of the company's case and promote the public witness. You already have a robust intervention policy with lots of interveners. You already have robust public comment. The legislature can certainly add a 21st party to a proceeding like this, but the commission is not sure that that's necessary. Separate and apart from all this, the commission also has a consumer affairs section that receives inquiries and complaints directly from consumers. They get about 16,000 inquiries and complaints per year. When they get complaints in, they contact the utility company and try to mediate those with the utility company. If that can't be worked out, they can escalate those complaints, and ultimately the commission can have hearings against utilities if utilities are violating their rules based on consumer complaints. So, as I said, the commission will do whatever the legislature asks it to do, but we do think this is unnecessary.
Thank you. Very thorough. I did not realize the extent of what PSC goes involved with that. Thank you for that presentation. Stay right there. I think we might have some questions of you from the committee. Representative Vance.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, did the PSC have this ensemble of internal advocates prior to the demise of this position back in the old days?
Yes, the commission's used the split between advocacy staff and advisory staff since at least the early 1990s. It may have been before that, but I can only go back that far.
So this position, the reestablishment of this position, may not upset the apple cart because it had been there before. Is that correct?
I don't know that it upsets the apple cart. I guess the commission's position would be it's kind of redundant. Also, just so you know, it wasn't previously under the commission. It was under a different agency.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Lim.
I have 2 questions. How does you mentioned the public interest advocacy staff, as per this bill, it is independent. Administratively, it's under the governor, but it's the governor's appointee. I'm curious how the PIA ensures independence from the PSC. And then my second question to Chairman Hofsteller had said a couple of times that the scope of this council per this bill is broader than rate cases or something under the PSC. And we have 4 different sections for that. You mentioned there's 16,000 complaints. I'm assuming not all of those are rate cases. So how does the PIA cover the full universe of what this would cover, including those federal proceedings?
The commission staff does intervene on behalf of the commission in federal proceedings on occasion. We've intervened years ago when there was a lot of activity at the FCC. We intervene in FERC proceedings when we think it would impact Georgians. So the commission has the ability to intervene in those proceedings. As far as the independence of PIA staff, in the early 2000s, the commission adopted a policy, they call it their efficiency review report, that laid out the distinct roles of the advocacy staff and the advisory staff and how they functioned. And so it's based on that adopted commission policy.
Thank you.
Representative Stinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you right here. Thank you. My question is maybe a little bit off topic, but kind of in sync to what you're discussing. Are you familiar with the LIHEAP program, Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program?
Yes.
Okay. Is there resources or opportunities available through public service commissions to help in that regard in some way or another?
In the past, there have been times where the commission has been able to access funds. For example, I think it was Atlanta Gas Light Company has a universal service fund that can be used for low-income assistance, and on occasion, the commission has channeled that money through LIHEAP. But they also, instead of using LIHEAP, AGL has senior low-income customers that are identified on their system, and the commission has done direct bill credits to them using that same funding source.
Okay.
So,
anything that you're aware of in rural Georgia, perhaps? Atlanta Gas Light is good, but if you're aware of any programs such as similar in maybe the rural part of the state?
Most of the rural gas we don't regulate, so we don't regulate municipal systems. We regulate Georgia Power on the electric side, but we don't regulate the EMCs, which tend to be more rural. So.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And again, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to just put that out there, a way to get everyone to thinking about the importance of the LIHEAP program and how it impacts all of Georgia. And that's the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. So thank you.
We've got one more question, but I do appreciate the great job PSC does over there, your staff, of what you do day in, day out, keeping rates low for Georgians and the power on great resources we have, generation in the state, and interaction it has. So thank you for that. We got Chairman Kemp.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here and giving that very detailed report. Got a couple of simple questions. Number one, who sets the rates for Georgia Power?
The commissioners.
The PSC.
Yeah, the PSC.
And so the PSC is also answering questions about people complaining about the rates.
Yes, the Consumer Affairs section.
But it's all under the PSC, right? So so you guys set the rates, and then if someone wants to complain about the rates, they call you to complain about the rates.
That's right.
How does that work out?
Well, actually, when the Consumer Affairs compiles complaints and reports those to the commissioners, so it helps the commissioners keep a handle on how actual Georgians are responding to what they do.
How many rate cuts have there been as a result of complaints?
Well, when we set rates, we have to do it based on the statutes that the legislature sets and based on, constitutional standards for setting rates. So you can't simply set a rate because someone is unhappy with what they're paying. You set rates based on just and reasonable and prudent costs. And so the way the commission evaluates rates is the company files what costs they incur to provide utility service, and then the commission can review those and make sure that they are just and reasonable. If they are, the commission is required by law to let them recover those costs. If we could say, no, you don't get it, and then they'd appeal and we'd lose and they'd get it anyway. So, we do have to follow parameters on how you set rates.
Okay. Thank you for your explanation.
Sure.
Okay, we got one more question, I think. Representative Yerta. Chairman Yerta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you coming today and appreciate the job you guys do. And I just wanted to say that I think we're very fortunate in Georgia to have our electric providers that we have, Georgia Power, the EMCs and the municipals, and they all have a diverse portfolio, and I think that that makes us attractive to industry in our state, and I think that's one of the reasons that Georgia's growing, because we have a cost-effective, reliable power source in Georgia, and I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Mann. We've got one other individual signed up from the audience to speak to the bill. Brian Jacob, if you here, and come to the mic and address the committee.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm Brian Jacob. I represent the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. It's my first opportunity to come before this committee, so I appreciate you letting me be here. The main reason I wanted to come down is that when this bill was heard over in the Senate, there was a suggestion that the Consumer Utility Council could be redundant, very much like you just heard Mr. Bond mention today, because there are, in part, because there are so many other intervening parties in these dockets. So SACE is one of those. We intervene in these dockets, but the point that I want to clarify is that we are not a consumer advocate. We're a clean energy advocacy organization. So the environment is our constituent. We are duty bound to our members to choose the positions and advocate for the positions that have the best environmental benefits. Now, 9 times out of 10, or probably even 99 times out of 100, that objective aligns with consumer interest in a position that a consumer advocate might take. But in the off chance that there are circumstances where those objectives would not align, we believe that residential customers and small business customers deserve to have an advocate that exclusively represents their interest. And so if you agree with that, then I think you'll support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that presentation. Okay, status here. This was a hearing only on this bill. Thank you, Senator, for being here. Any other questions of the Senator from the audience? I've got one. Chairman Jaspers.
Yeah, Senator Hostetler, I'll give you the opportunity to answer the redundancy question. That's came up 2 or 3 times, and
I think the big difference is that this person is independent. I have seen some of that staff chastised in the meeting for being activist by a public service commissioner. I don't think they've got independence there. Number one, they don't have legal standing to represent the consumer, and that's the difference. And as far as the overall rates, when you look at our bills in Georgia, in 22, we were in the top 10 in bills for the consumer part. Now, there's different rates for utilities with a 25% increase of several increases with everything coming along through this June. I mean, it looks like we'll be in the top 5, and so the consumers need somebody to advocate for them in these hearings, I think, for their rates as well. So, and I'll be glad to provide that data from the Federal Energy site on those numbers. But I do think they need an advocate for them that has legal standing and that is independent. Independence is important in this case.
Along those lines, Mr. Chairman, I'd really like to ask too. I'm concerned about the litigation that would happen from this person. To what extent do you think the litigation would carry on? Would it PSC have to hire more attorneys to defend itself, or I'm not an attorney, but I just worry about the long-term litigation continuing from this commission.
We can look at the other states. It's mainly just been that I think they've got somebody protecting them. I haven't seen a lot of litigation back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s. I didn't see a lot of litigation, but I did think they had an advocate independently representing them.
Okay, I see one other question from Chairman Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was thinking along those same lines as litigation, and to make sure there's an understanding that this is not legal counsel for an individual person that's complaining about a rate. It would be more of a group concept. I understand where we're coming from, and people have complaints, but I don't want there to be a understanding or a misconception that this is for someone to go one-on-one. Again,
well, it looks like this person will have to be an attorney according to the bill.
Right, that's what I'm getting at. So it sounds like a lot more litigation is where I was going, and that was a concern.
That's right. It works in 46 states. That's all I'll say.
Okay, Vice Chairman Campbell.
Thank you, Chairman Dickey. Question, are we strictly talking one person, or would he have a council under him? How would,
I think he would have an administrative staff of probably a couple of people. The entire group was 400,000 when it was disbanded, but I think they could draw on a lot of the experts that work with the PSC now and simply use their data to advocate for the consumer in many cases.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Senator, for being here presenting this bill. We will take this up at a later time. We've got one other matter in your packet that I'm going to come down to the table and present a House resolution. Joe, you want to do this?
The microphone's yours.
Mr. Chairman, this is hearing only. I don't expect a motion today on this. LC 442695. It has really come to many of us who farm, live in rural Georgia, really care about our ag industry in this state, about the loss of farmland. And we've lost, as my resolution said, 2.6 million acres of crop, hay, and pasture land over the last 30 or 40 years, and continuing to lose farmland for various reasons. From urban encroachment, I see that in my district over in Houston County, some of the finest farmland over there, big apartments on it, shopping centers. I just also witnessed a groundbreaking of a new economic development center in Houston County. Jack Links is going to build, y'all like beef jerky? Well, they're building a huge facility there, but they cut down a 100-acre pecan orchard to put it on. So it just, we want economic development, we want the jobs, but I just really worry about trading one industry for another and what it does to our ag industry. And one of the things that which come to all of our attention is the need for renewable, clean power, as you just heard, and solar power is a big part of that. And much of it's coming to rural Georgia. Land's very expensive in this part of the state, and so the need and the cost to keep power rates low and solar energy as cheap as you can get it, they're coming to rural Georgia and taking flat farmland. In some cases, irrigated, our finest farmland, and that concerns me. And so I think we need to have a conversation across this state about where to site some of these solar. I think, in my opinion, and what I want to study is some more appropriate sites to put solar on than some of our main prime farmland. I think we've got some less desirable, less productive land. We also have a huge abundance of timberland in this state that is. I was in our Natural Resources Committee meeting several weeks ago. We're growing 40% more wood in this state than we're actually using right now. We're at a point where we've got a glut of timber and timberland and wood production in this state, which I'm glad of. And we're desperately looking for new uses for our for the wood we're growing, for sustainable maybe jet fuel, and we're mass timber. Some of y'all maybe have gone to see our mass timber buildings. We're trying to find uses for the wood we're growing. But I thought, what about putting some of the solar on some of our more wooded areas as we have a glut of wood? And so this is a little bit of what this study committee would look into. Would there be incentives to keep solar off of our prime productive farmland that we desperately need to grow the crops and food for this nation, for this state, and keep it the number one agricultural industry in this state. I would hate to trade being the number one agricultural industry in this state for the number one solar industry in the country at the expense of our farm and farmland. So that is a little bit what I want to talk about with the study committee, where to site these solar facilities. Some places are better than others. I don't want to restrict it. I'm a good solar supporter and want to always be supportive of our solar, but just want to make sure it goes in some more appropriate places across our state. And I know it's a lot of cost variables there, distance from transmission lines and trying to level, but seems like the lowest cost solar is the flattest, where you have to disturb the soil less and large. Some of these solar facilities, I'm told, are 1,000 acres or more in one location. Maybe we need to break them up into smaller facilities to fit better into the communities where they're going. So that is what this study committee is about, and I hope you'll give me feedback on it or your thoughts on it. Just trying to elevate the level of conversation about it across our state. Our Georgia Power and EMCs and municipals all putting out RFPs for solar, and hopefully maybe voluntarily they can put some additions in those things for where these sites go. So that's this, and thank you for your time this morning. And we'll
some questions you
yeah, I'd
open
love
for
if
some questions.
anybody's
Okay.
got any questions.
Chairman Camp.
Thank you so much for bringing this. I too like smaller solar areas.
As
I don't like thousands
as I know
of acres.
from my other committee.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And looking at this, we're all very acutely aware that unfortunately our farming community is older than they've ever been, and that it's more challenging for a lot of newcomers to get into the business, especially with land prices escalating, because highest and best use of land. Sometimes a family would decide, unfortunately, to sell it to a developer because they just don't have the interest in farming it long term. With this committee and your vision of it, and I applaud you for it, I think this is excellent. Are you going to consider possibly bringing in the Department of Economic Development and maybe some other stakeholders to discuss maybe some potential incentives to incentivize the remaining of the farmland?
I think that would be an excellent idea. Some states have mitigation of wetlands, other things. Maybe we ought to look at mitigation of farmland if we don't want to lose any more of it. I think that's an idea that I'd like to explore. Private property rights are very important to citizens of this state, but there again, there's certain places that I think are more appropriate, and I want local governments to have zoning in their communities. They know best what fits in their communities and what doesn't. And I think our local governments are being more attuned to these solar developments. They certainly have some economic incentives to let them come, but sometimes it's to the detriment of our ag community. I don't want to see that. See it incentivized to the detriment of our ag community. So it's a lot of. Thank you for the question. It's a lot of things we need to consider and look at.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Some more questions?
I'll take one more, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Cox?
If it's a friendly question.
I'll be friendly. As long as I get some of that peach ice cream, I'll be good to go.
It's coming.
Looking at solar and the world and how it's changing so rapidly with technology, and I think we'll probably start seeing a move of panels shrinking in size because of efficiencies, or it may not look like the standard rectangular cube piece, if you will, because there's prisms now that are coming out that's being much more efficient. There's some low hanging fruit, I think, sitting on our interstates and highways with space off to the sides that I've often wondered why we have this land that's available. Why wouldn't we be utilizing that space that's already there to prevent us from touching our farmland, and the fear of what it could do to our agriculture and obviously the timber as well. I'm supportive of this. Just keep in mind that the technology is rapidly moving. Some things could even potentially be put on top of some of our buildings and places within our communities on the rooftops. And I think that's a very effective way also to be utilizing this. So I support what you're doing, and just I think we have vast amounts of opportunity to improve where we are right now.
Thank you, and I agree. I think we've got lots of options in this state, but cost is one of the barriers. I think it costs a little bit more to put it on the side of the roads and rooftops that are more dispersed. These huge solid set solar fields. I don't call them fields, solar facilities. Or the lowest cost to deliver, and I get that, but and we all want lowest cost power we can get, but I think we need to consider what we're giving up in return for that. So that's what this is about. Thank you, appreciate everybody being here. Mr. Vice Chairman, if there's no other questions, I think you could probably adjourn the meeting.
Let's adjourn the meeting. I think it's the proper time.